Chapter 5 deals with carbohydrates. And many people say, well, you should have diets that are low or absent of carbohydrates. And this is just not a good nutrition practice because carbohydrates are a major source of energy for the body. They include both starch and sugar, and they can be simple or complex. Simple forms of carbohydrates is sugar. So a monosaccharide is a sugar. It's the basic chemical unit of carbohydrates. A disaccharide is a sugar that has two monosaccharides. So simple sugars are not as healthy for us as complex sugars. Different types of monosaccharides are glucose, which is blood sugar, fructose, which is fruit sugar, galactose, which is part of milk sugar or lactose. Disaccharides, another simple sugar, includes maltose, sucrose, and lactose. Sucrose is known as table sugar. It's the typical white stuff we add to coffee, etc. It's very refined, strips away all the vitamins and minerals, and it is mainly just made of sucrose. It occurs naturally in honey, maple syrup, carrots, and some sweet fruits such as pineapples, and that variety is not as bad as if you have the refined one in the form of table sugar. There is a lot of different types of sugars out there, and there are different types of sweeteners. You have honey, you have regular white sugar, maple syrup, high fructose corn syrup, brown sugar, molasses. View table 5.1 and look at the difference between, and you can see sometimes we think just because it's a natural sugar it's okay for us, but there's a lot you should be understanding with regard to the calories, the percentage or grams of carbohydrates that are in them, especially if you're watching your sugar intake. There are different types of added sugars that are, they're non-nutritive and they have certain amount of calories. So carbohydrates usually provide 4 calories per gram of food. There are different names for sugars you need to be aware of. We think of sugar and we think of only table sugar, but it can be brown sugar, confectioners, or powdered sugar, corn sweetener, high fructose corn syrup, dextrose, fructose, lactose, maltodextrin, maple syrup, molasses, xylitol, sorbitol, and the list goes on and on. So view table 5.2 and learn the various types of sugars so that when you're looking at food labels and you're trying to determine what the ingredient list is, you'll understand that a lot of these names are disguised as sugar and you wouldn't even know it. What are alternative sweeteners? It's anything added to a food to sweeten it but provides few or no calories. Some of them are sorbitol, xylitol, or mannitol. They're much higher in their sweetness, but they don't have as many calories. They are approved as non-nutritives. Examples are saccharin and aspartame, sucralose, and stevia extract. Saccharin has been used for over 100 years. Most scientific evidence supports its safety, but you have to remember these non-nutritive sweeteners many of them are artificial. So you need to be careful and really limit them. And also remember that they are so much higher. Think about aspartame is 160 to 200 times sweeter than regular, sugar, and something like neotame is 700 to 13,000 times sweeter. So you need only a little bit, but the sweetness content is so high, and that kind of triggers the pleasure centers in the brain and makes you want more and more sugar and also more and more food. It just makes you hungrier. So really avoiding them is best. You can see names for aspartame under brand names such as Equal and NutraSweet. It has phenylalanine and aspartic acid. People with phenylketonuria or PKU must avoid aspartame, so it's important to know that. Sucralose is found in Splenda, that's the brand name, and again, it's a chemically modified product, so you have to be careful with it because chemicals, we don't know the long-term effects over time. Stevia is from a shrub, and it's considered safe by the FDA. But again, moderation is key. Complex carbohydrates include polysaccharides. They have greater than 10 monosaccharides that are bonded together via chemical bonds. And this is the storage form of carbohydrates in plants and animals. So it comes in two forms, starch and glycogen. And starch is the storage form of carbohydrates in plants. You find it in the roots and the seeds. And glycogen is storage form of carbohydrates in humans. We store glycogen in the liver and the muscles. So when we're eating food and it breaks down, if we're storing glycogen in the liver and muscles, when we store that, and let's say we are running or doing some kind of physical activity and we need to break down carbohydrates for energy, we can do that by breaking down the glycogen that's stored in the liver and muscles. So that's it for part 1. We'll continue with part 2 and discuss carbohydrates further.